we are a mere week away from the release of the Lyrical booster set in English, and quite a few people still come up to me and say, what did Lyrical decks even do? And to be honest, until last week, I was kind of in the same ballpark for at least 3 out of the 6. Hello folks, it's time to talk about Lyrical Monasterio. There's going to be quite a few videos coming out over the next 2 weeks talking about the 6th nation. Yes, the 6th nation. There are the 5 great nations, but then of course since the start Lyrical has been announced together with them. It's going to be supported twice per year, every half a year, which is pretty cool because I think these decks are actually super fun and deserve their support. Now in this video, we will not be going over deck lists. I have a video coming up very soon in just a couple days actually talking about that. Today, we are quite literally going to be talking about the 6 different ride lines that Lyrical Monasterio has access to from the first booster set and talking about their playstyles. This video is primarily aimed towards the new players in Overdress that don't really keep up with reveals and don't really keep up with things as they come out. You'd be surprised, but there's actually a lot of players that don't read the card of the days every single day and they don't watch every single content creator who talks about the reveals and stuff like that, but they just kind of come into locals, play, and then, oh, new set comes out, let's look up the cards or find out from someone at locals that knows everything. And so it is my job today to tell you what these decks do. So there are a total of 6 different ride lines, one of which is of course Kaidi from the trial deck. So we're going to start with that one. So Kaidi is actually a very unique one from these 6 because she is the one ride line that is the most splashable and mixable with other things as you wish. It also has the highest high roll potential, I want to say, because this deck can actually go up to 7 attacks in a turn on a persona ride. So let's talk about the actual core of the deck, which is Kaidi. So Kaidi herself is the trial deck boss unit, and she essentially says that when she attacks, you can soul blast 1 and choose 2 of your rearguards, bounce them back to your hand. This allows you to basically call down your triggers, call down your PGs, revive your triggers if you have access to that from the ride line, and then bounce them to hand. You can also just attack with your good rearguards that have on-place effects, and then again bounce them to hand. They also have a really good double rare in the booster set, which is the Heiress, that basically says when she's boosted, if your Vanguard is Kairi, counterblast 1, choose a card from hand, and call to an empty rearguard circle. So Kairi will empty out those rearguard circles, then you'll be able to call more cards to them. Kairi's own second skill, once you've Persona Road, also funds that superior calling because she says after she battles, if you Persona Road this turn, you can choose 2 cards from your hand and call them to empty rearguard circles. And now bouncing them back to hand with the effect of Kaidi isn't the only way to empty those, because a lot of people have found themselves splashing the Ghost package into this deck, which allows you to basically attack with something, put it to the bottom of the deck, attack with something, put it to soul, and that way you have empty rearguard circles in the front that now Kaidi or the supporting grade 2 can call things to. There's also a very strong card in the trial deck that supports Kaidi as well, which is the Shia, who basically lets you soul blast 1 when she's placed from hand to look at the top card of the deck, and it lets you either call it to an empty rearguard circle or add it to your hand, in which case you discard 1. So she's also basically a very huge component in making that 7 combo attack pattern work. And so if you like that kind of Bermuda Triangle playstyle from before Overdress, then this will be the deck for you, because this is essentially just bounce your stuff, call it out of hand, combo deck. It's fun, it's very pleasant to play, and especially if you're building one of the other decks that we'll talk about, which is Felty Rosa, you can splash it into this deck very easily. You can also splash the gems build of Willista into this too. It's very splashable and you can explore a lot of different options with this deck. Now up next, we'll talk about the one that has gotten by far the most competitive results, which is of course Lorena Roll. Lorena Roll, or the cat girl of the set of the 6 ride lines, is a order-based deck that plays set orders. I'm not really sure what to compare this to outside of honestly Bruce playstyle-wise, because it is a deck that really doesn't do much until turn 4. This deck functions around song orders, and basically when you have these songs in the order zone, they have effects when they are played in the order zone, and then they have effects when they are sung. Now, how do you sing an order? Well, the Lorena Roll grade 3 says that once per turn you can counterblast 1, choose one of your face-up orders, and sing it by flipping it face down, and then that order will have some kind of effect when it is flipped face down. The Autumn song actually says that when it's flipped, it will give your Vanguard +1 crit, and then the Winter order says when it's flipped face down, you can choose one of your rearguards for every face down order on your field and stand them, and for every rearguard stood by this effect, she gains plus 10k power. Your Vanguard gains plus 10k power. This deck also has a sort of walking pot of greed with Eknoa, who basically says on attack, if you sung a song this turn, which which is basically, you know, flipping one of your orders face down. She gets plus 5k and you can count +1, discard 1 to draw 2. And so basically the game plan of this deck is to essentially like ride up through your ride line, and the ride line effect will put those orders from your deck or from your hand into the order zone. The grade 1/1 will draw you cards and give you power. Grade 2/1 will draw you cards and give you a crit. And then the grade 3/1 lets you flip your face down orders back face up in order to use them again, while at the same time giving you that board restand plus the big power. And then the sort of win con that ties it all together, which is Lorena Roll's own effect, which is that when she attacks, if you have 2 or more face down cards in your order zone, you can choose an order song in your order zone and sing it. And then for that battle, your opponent cannot call sentinels. So the entire kind of like win con of this deck is to essentially just set up your order zone, and then on turn 4, because you can, like, when you ride Lorena Roll, you sing the first order on turn 3, so then you have 1 face down, and then on turn 4 you use her act effect again to sing the second one. Now you have 2 face down, and then when she attacks, you can then flip the third one because she checks for the counts before flipping that third one. And so there on turn 4 you'll have the guard restrict, so your opponent cannot PG. You have like a 40 plus potentially 70k power from the winter order, and you have bonus crits from the autumn song order, which give you just basically a very strong Vanguard with restanding rears, and it's just a really strong deck. And there's a reason why this one is the most competitive as well. Moving along to the one that has gotten the least competitive results but is my personal favorite, which is Willista. Willista is kind of like Zorga slash Orphist, I want to say, in that it's very order heavy as well, but it's not a set order heavy deck. Here the orders are gems, and basically Willista likes to draw cards. On grade 2, she says when you play one of the order cards, one of the precious gem order cards, she draws an extra card. One of the precious gem order cards draws you 2 cards, so in one turn you draw 3 plus put them into the soul, which is very nice. And then the grade 3 Willista basically says that as all the gems, all the gem orders go to your soul after you use them, the grade 3 Willista will let you soul blast the specific orders out to do specific effects. One of the effects will let you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and call 2 of them 2 empty rearguard circles and give them 5k power and discard the rest, whereas the other one lets you soul blast 1 to give herself plus 15k and disable your opponent from intercepting. So this means that you can actually also use those more than once per turn, so you can actually like soul blast 2 of the blue one to fill up your board, or you can soul blast 2 of the red one in order to give yourself plus 30k and intercept denial. It's not the strongest deck, but it's quite fun, and you can kind of like keep pushing this aggro because you have a grade 3 in that supports you, that lets you play more than 1 order per turn, thus kind of like bending the rules of the game. And a lot of people combine this deck with Henrietta, who is a grade 2 that essentially allows you to soul blast 1 when she's boosted to increase her power by the unit's shield, so by the boosting unit's shield. So usually going to boost her with a trigger, therefore it's going to be a 20k boost, so you're making 30k columns that could get even more powerful. And it's generally a deck that wants to be super aggressive from the very start because, as I said before, the orders draw you a lot of cards, and because of that you can afford to be aggressive from like turn 1, turn 2 onwards, because you're going to redraw your hand naturally by just playing this deck. Up next we have the Black and White Angels, which is Celestial. Celestial is a pretty unique deck in concept. It functions off of specific grades of cards being in your bind zone and only those grades. So she has a White Wings ability, which for example in the grade 3 says that the White Wings comes into effect when you only have odd grades in your bind zone, so 1s or 3s. And then the Black Wings ability, which is when you have even grades in your bind zone, which is either 0s or 2s, will basically give your opponent's units minus 5k, whereas the Black Wings will give you 5k in a crit. Sorry, whereas the White Wings will give you 5k in a crit. And so you can build this deck based on whichever win con you prefer. The Black Wings playstyle is a bit more disruptive and like, you know, minusing power in your opponent's field, destroying your opponent's cards, whereas the White Wings is the one that I personally prefer, and I've seen more results for this type of deck as well, because they actually have a grade 1 that says if you're in White Wings, when it's played, count -1, for every 3 of your odd grade units on your board, you can choose 1 rearguard and give it plus 5k plus 1 crit. So Celestial has inbuilt crit when you're in White Wings, and then you basically, if you have 3 1s in the back and 3 3s in the front, you can give your 2 front rearguards plus 5k in a crit, therefore all of your swings are swinging for lethal once your opponent's at 4. And now of course, in order to get into these wings, like White Wings, Black Wings, you have to fill up that bind zone somehow, and of course the bind zone is filled up with the ride line itself, right? As you go from 0 to 3, the basically grade 1 and 2 and 3 let you just like bind the top card of your deck and, you know, put in the bind zone, and then at the start of the next turn, you either put that that card to the bottom of the deck if you're on the grade 2, or you put it to your hand and then you bind the top card of your deck again. So you always have a shot to change what the grade will be. And there's the supporting grade 3 as well that lets you actually activate both Black and White Wings abilities for the whole turn, but this one can be a little bit luck reliant, so I don't like relying on it myself. Because we also have cards that actually allow us to change the grades of the cards in the bind zone, you know, through their own abilities, which I think helps to make this deck be more consistent. So I personally think this deck is really cool. It is very nice and very unique in that sense as well. So if you like the more kind of like technical playstyle and you want to build your deck around one of the two Wings playstyles, I really recommend this one to you as well. Now this next one is, man, if you liked Narukami before Overdress, if you like Thunder Dragons, you like Vermilion, you like Brawlers, well this is the deck for you, which is of course Clarissa. So Clarissa is part of the Earnest Correct band and she is the leader, and her deck is quite literally based around a single order. One single grade 3 order, which says when you have 5 different named Earnest Correct cards on your field, you can play this card. For that turn, all of your Earnest Correct cards gain 5k power, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher, your Earnest Correct leader Clarissa gains the ability that when she attacks, you can choose 3 of your opponent's circles, so Vanguard, and like multiple rear guards up to 3, and she attacks them at the same time. And of course, this is great because Clarissa's effect is when her attack hits anything, you draw 1 and then give one of your Earnest Correct rear guards plus 5k. So if you hit all 3, that's draw 3 and give plus 5k 3 times. That is very good. She also searches the order for you, and the Earnest Correct cards themselves are good too. You have a grade 2 that searches for other members, which is very nice. You have a grade 1 that says that when your other Earnest Corrects are retired, whether it's by an effect or being attacked into, you can soul blast 1, discard 1 to just bring them back to hand, just like that. You have a grade 2 that literally says when your Clarissa hits, counterblast 1, discard 1 to stand it. So you can actually attack with this first and attack with the Clarissa, and therefore get 4 attacks in a turn, which is really nice, especially on Persona Ride. The deck is a little bit simple because it is essentially just kind of like doing the same thing every single turn, but it is fun. It's fun, and if you enjoy that kind of Narukami playstyle of like controlling your opponent's board and plussing a lot out of it, it is very good, and a lot of people look at this deck as the second best after Lorena Roll. Another one of my personal favorites is going to be in the 6th spot here, which is of course Felty Rosa. If you like the more aggressive combo-based decks that like to aggro out quite early, such as Magnolia or Flagberg already existing in Overdress, Felty Rosa is going to be right up your alley because this deck is built around ghosts. Felty Rosa herself has a very unique skill in that when she drive checks a ghost normal unit, and you'll see ghost because right under the nation name there is like the race of the card, and so ghost is just a race basically. So a bunch of these cards have ghost races. So when you drive check a ghost normal unit, so not a trigger unit, a normal unit, you may call that card to an empty front row rearguard circle, and then you can counterblast 1 for that battle, gain +1 drive check. So basically, the whole idea of this deck is that you want to attack with your front row ghosts that either put themselves to the soul, to the bottom of your deck, to the top of your deck, and then attack with Felty Rosa when your front row is empty and call new front rows. So you basically get confirmed 5 attacks just like that. We have this grade 3 that basically countercharges when she's placed on the field, not from your hand. So in Felty's case, that would be from the top of the deck, while also standing something in the same column. But then when she attacks, she goes to the bottom of the deck. We have this grade 3 that goes to the soul after attacking and giving another rearguard plus 5k power as well. We have this grade 2, which essentially lets you Soul Blast 2 to give her plus 15k power, but in exchange she'll go to the top of your deck afterwards, which is really nice because you can call her out again with Felty after. You have this grade 2, which is like, oh, you didn't like what you called? Well, that's fine. You can put her into the soul to draw an extra card, and therefore you can just like cycle, and she reopens up that front row for you to have another chance with Felty. And this whole time you keep counterblasting and counterblasting and counterblasting to call your front row while also getting drive checks, so you have still a great chance at checking triggers. However, the unique thing with this ride line is that a lot of people like to run couple of precious gems and the Felty Rosa grade 1, which says when you ride over it, you put 1 card from your hand into your soul to search your deck for a precious gem and add it to your hand. So then you use the red gem to draw 2 cards and basically put it into the soul, because as you've probably noticed, this deck uses a lot of soul, especially with that grade 2, and so it is pretty important to keep that soul generation going pretty strong. And that's basically the 6 different ride lines for Lyrical Monasterio. They all play in wildly different ways, but I think that they're honestly all very interesting and unique in their own ways, and I do recommend that you pick them up because I honestly think that these decks are also really cheap in Japan, and so I feel like the prices might actually transfer over to English too. Like, I was never the biggest Bermuda fan. I built a Bermuda deck, I built an Orange deck at the end of the V series because I built it for 20 bucks. It was super cheap. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to build some of these decks myself too. I'm especially looking at like Felty Rosa and Willista and maybe even Clarissa, because Clarissa looks really good and just like the aesthetic is very pleasing as well. So let me know in the comments if these decks interest you as well. Did you need this video? Did you learn something from this? Was it nice to get a kind of refresher? And even if you already knew anything, tell me what you're looking forward to the most from these Lyrical Monasterio ride lines. I'll have my video of all 6 decks presented to you guys on Friday, so you can look forward to that as well. Other than that, if you like the video, please do give it a like, and if you like the content, please do subscribe because it does help the channel a lot. But otherwise, that's gonna be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.